Hi, everyone, and welcome back. Today we have Alvin Lui from Courage is a Habit on, and he's going to tell us what his organization is.
Hello, thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. So my name is Alvin Lui, and I'm with Courage is a Habit. Our organization makes tools and strategies for the average parent and legislators so that they understand the indoctrination, the various indoctrination tentacles that are governing K through 12 today.
Mm,
Obviously, the majority of parents don't have time to dig in hours and hours a week. And so we try to streamline down the information, but more importantly, we give them calls to action
mm,
because an outrage without outlet, it creates hopelessness. And a lot of parents are feeling hopeless because they see the sexual indoctrination, the political indoctrination.
yep.
They see all the things happening, and so especially transgender social contagion, all the critical race theory ideology being pushed,
Mm-hmm.
and the sexualization. So they don't understand where it's coming from, and they don't understand why it's just increasing. And kids are doing worse academically, they're doing worse emotionally and mentally, and then it is driving kids to just be this shell of themselves. And
Right.
parents see that, and so we try to help them understand what it is, where it's coming from, and then more importantly, what they can do about it. And so that's what my organization does.
Okay. So are you based in Maine?
No, I'm in Indiana, but
Okay.
my team works from different places,
Okay.
different across, different states.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. So you had mentioned the LD 1735 bill, which was it you guys
Yeah,
that coined the transgender trafficking phrase, or was it someone else?
right. No, that
Okay.
was us.
Yeah, I think that's
So
accurate.
it is accurate, right? And
Yep.
so what I'll do is when I'm done, I will send you the things I'm going to refer to right now, and
Okay.
then you can put it in your show notes
Sweet. Thank you.
down in the description. So that way, everything that I mention you'll have a link to it. Okay.
Perfect. I like doing that. So
Yeah. So it just makes it easier for your listeners to refer back to the things I'm going to be talking about right now.
cool.
So LD 1735 in Maine, it's a transgender trafficking bill,
Mm,
and it mimics SB 107 out of California. That's it. It's a copycat bill.
okay.
And that was passed late last year, I think October, November, sometime last year in California. And so the bill basically says this: if you're a child and you cross over state lines, if it passes in Maine,
Right.
then it doesn't matter as long as the child gets there. It doesn't matter who brings them there. It doesn't matter how this child gets across state lines. If they want any transgender irreversible drugs, body
Mm,
destroying puberty blockers, surgeries, double mastectomies, castrations, anything like that.
mm,
If they want those things, and the parents, and what parent, unless you're a lunatic, what parents would want that for
right.
their child, the parents cannot go get that child. And I want everyone to understand this is not hyperbole. That is
Mm,
the bill. The parents do not have custody to go get the child. The state will not help them
hmm.
locate or reunite with the child.
Okay.
If your parents who are divorced, and let's say one parent has custody, the other parent does not have custody, the parent that doesn't have custody can bring the child over to Maine.
That's one thing I was wondering is because in a normal circumstance, the state would go get that child and bring them home. So I wondered how that would affect that situation.
In this case, not only will the state not go get them, they will actually impede the parent with custody,
Wow.
with full custody. They will not honor the home state's custody agreements.
That's awful.
Both are equally as awful. Obviously, one, you're keeping both parents from the child, the other one, you're
Mm,
keeping one parent from the child. Either way, the child goes down the transgender destructive path.
mm, okay.
It will erode parental rights in all 50 states. Again, this is a copycat bill. This bill is now popped up across the country in different states, but Maine's the next one here.
Okay.
And so one of the things I'm going to give you is just a artifact that your listeners can download. Can just
Mm,
go. It's going to be just a JPEG,
okay.
and they can share it. And it describes these four. There's going to be four pieces to this bill. Obviously, we'll link to the bill itself.
Yep.
Um, but the reason why we call it transgender trafficking is because it truly is trafficking in every sense of the word. And so one of the things I'm going to give you is a PDF We worked with a wonderful organization that helps to prevent sex trafficking. They try to help with the kids, try to preventative. If the kids get into it, they try to work with the parents. And so this organization, it's wonderful. It's called Freedom Forever.
Okay.
And I worked with them to come up with a side-by-side comparison between a sex trafficking and transgender trafficking. And so I will give you that link, but just for the sake of on being on your show, I will read just a few comparisons. Okay. And you tell me, okay, parents, you tell me, and you tell me as well, if this sounds familiar to you. Again, we worked on this without hyperbole. This is a side-by-side comparison between sex trafficking and transgender trafficking. Okay. All right. So sex trafficking tells children that their parents do not understand them. Only the sex traffickers and their group care about them. They are the children's new family. Encourages children to keep secrets from parents. Transgender trafficking tells children that their parents do not understand them. Only the school counselors and mental health professionals care about them. They are the children's new family. Encourages children to keep secrets from their parents. You see that now in school. And in fact, in Maine, just 3 weeks ago, not even 3 weeks ago, they passed an LD-394, which is the policy is Chapter 117, that expands the powers of school counselors and social workers to, wait for it,
I forget where it was.
Keep secrets from parents.
Was that, I forget, it was a coastal town, I think, that did it. I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
It doesn't matter. It's in Maine. It's all of Maine.
Yep.
And so now the school counselors and social, doesn't mean that parents can't fight back, doesn't mean parents can't sue, doesn't mean parents can't do all those things. It just makes it harder for parents because now school counselors and social workers are emboldened to keep secrets, transgender secrets. They put the social contagion on the children and then encourage children to keep secrets from parents. But what's really devious about what they're doing in schools is the moment the parents try to push back, they will try to deem the parents unsafe and abusive. They're telling children that your parents that don't want you to go through self-mutilation and harm, the transgender contagion creates children to be lifelong medical patients. And when parents fight back, they say parents are unsafe and abusive.
Which absolutely blows my mind, because if I gave my toddler alcohol, I'd probably go to jail. But I could give them a cocktail of hormones, so...
That's okay,
it's insane.
If you do that, they'll take you. The same people, they'll take them. If you try to give your toddler alcohol, they'll obviously, rightly so, they'll separate the child from you. But if you refuse to give that child when they get to be 9, when your toddler's 9, if your toddler's 2 right now, when they become 9, if you refuse to give them a Lupron, which is a chemical castration to give rapists, if you refuse to give them that, they'll take the child from you for not giving it to them. That's what these these kind of bills do. They're separating the children from the family. And so that's secrets. That's the first thing sex traffickers do. That's exactly what the schools are doing. Okay. All right. Let's do another one. Uses sex trafficking, uses gaslighting techniques and emotional blackmail to keep parents from finding out what is happening to their children until it's too late. Sex traffickers groom the child, and every time they maybe look like the child might be moving away, they start emotionally blackmailing the child. If the parents maybe start to suspect something, blackmail or start to gaslight the parents. Sex trafficking. Excuse me. Transgender trafficking. Uses gaslighting techniques and emotional blackmail to keep parents from finding out what is happening to the children until it's too late. Identical. We didn't have to change a word on that one.
That's scary.
Think about it. Gaslighting. What's the matter? It's just a pronoun. Don't you? It's just manners. It's just a word. What's the big deal? Why are you making a big deal out of pronouns? Oh, the binding? Oh, it's just a piece of cloth. What's the big deal? Even though it actually hurts the ribs, and damages, if your penis tucking.
Sounds awful.
They're going to kill themselves. They're going to kill themselves if you don't let them do this. Why are you erasing trans kids? That's transgender trafficking.
It's crazy.
Here's one. Buys new clothes, sex trafficking, buys new clothes for the victims. They are grooming to begin the process of molding them into their new identities. The victims are taught to keep their new wardrobe a secret from their parents. So sex trafficker, as they start taking the kids out, they start getting them out of the home. One of the first things they do is start buying them new clothing. Some of it is really revealing clothing to prepare them for prostitution, to get them used to wearing more revealing clothing. And then other times it's to change their identities altogether, so that when they finally do traffic the child, when the parents go, "Here's the picture of my child," the child they look very different.
They're almost unrecognizable.
Almost unrecognizable, right? Okay, so that should make sense. Even if you don't know a lot about sex trafficking, that should make sense, right? Transgender trafficking. A lot of K through 12 teachers provides transition closets for students to change into different clothes when they come to school than they come to school in. This is part of the process of molding them into their new identities. Students change out of the new wardrobe at the end of the day to keep it a secret from parents. Same thing. In Maine, specifically, there's a radical organization called Out Maine, and that's what they do. They provide the blocker, they provide the binding and the tucking, and they they work with the social workers for puberty blockers. They provide clothing, all these different things, and that's what Out Maine does, and they're in the Maine schools. This is why that the chapter 117, they're all for that, because that's how they're going to get used to it. They work with the social workers to get into that. Here's the last one. I'll read one more. I'm not going to read all of them, but last one. This one should, again, very familiar to parents in Maine schools. Sex trafficking shows pornography to victims early to desensitize them. If the victims begin to object, tell them they're dirty and they've already watched it anyway. Transgender trafficking shows pornography to students early to desensitize them. If parents begin to object, tell them children see it on the internet anyway. That's what they do in schools. Think about all the pornography in schools that parents are fighting about. And then when you try to fight back, what do they? It's about representation. Why are you a bigot? Why do you want to get rid of books?
Why do you want to get rid of it?
They see it on the internet. They see it on the internet anyway. We hear that every day. By the point, anytime you hear they see it on the internet anyway, you know you're talking to a groomer, because that's exactly what the sex traffickers would say. So we call it a transgender trafficking bill, not out of hyperbole, but because that is actually true.
It's a literal definition at this point.
It's a literal definition at this point. And so we'll give you that, of course. And then the third thing I want to give everybody in Maine is there are 3 things that you can do. Every parent, every citizen, whether you're a grandparent, parent, aunt, and uncle, there are 3 things, one of 3 things. You can do all 3, but most people just do one of 3 things that you can do in Maine. You can show, so they're going to be listening to this bill on this Friday.
Right.
At 1 p.m. Okay. And so they're going to be listening to open comments, and then in a week or 2, they'll do a working session to decide if they're going to try to pass this or not. So it's important that everybody make their voices heard. If most people listening to your show right now go, "This can't be. He's making this up. This cannot be. This cannot be. There's no way we're here. No way we're here." But we are. It is the truth. This is the bill they'll be listening to on this Friday, May 12th at 1 p.m. And we'll provide the address of where to go. It's just, at the State House, of course. There's one of 3 things everybody in Maine can do. You can show up at 1 p.m. or a little before 1 p.m. And speak. You can speak in front of the committee and tell them what absolute lunatics they are to even propose something like this.
Right.
All in the name of the transgender cult. If you can't show up, the second best thing is a Zoom testimony. Okay. Zoom testimony. You register now, and then you can, go from home or from work or wherever at 1 p.m. You'll get on, and then you'll be in a queue, and then they'll have you come on. I mean, you'll have to wait a little bit because they'll do the in-person first, and then they'll do the Zoom. But then you're just waiting at home on your computer, right? And then the third thing, the least, if you can't do any of the thing, here's the one thing everybody can do is to put in written testimony. You can do it anytime between now and at the, we're going to say, let's say Thursday at 10 p.m. Okay. Technically you can do Friday morning, but we don't want people cutting that close. So we're going to say 10 p.m. Okay. So 10 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, which is this Thursday. Okay. Everybody can put in public comments. And so what we did, we know that these sites are confusing on purpose.
The one for the LD 1619 last week, I had a hard time signing my thing up to do that because I had to go through a link. Someone had to help me. So that someone in this case is me. Okay. We created a
a guide that literally takes you step by step with screenshots.
Okay.
It's like a user guide. So there's
Nice.
literally no chance of mistakes. It's fast. We give you a link. You click on the link. You pick, well, there's 3 things you can do, right? So you pick one of the 3. So if you don't want to do live, you don't want to do Zoom, you want to do written comments, just go down to written comments and you follow that super instruction. But if you're like, I don't want to do written comments, I'm going to show up live. We tell you how to register. I want to do Zoom. So literally this user guide, a 10-year-old can follow it. We do screenshots. We give you arrows. We walk you through it. We assume you've never done this before. This guide is written to assume you've never done this before.
Which I feel like, honestly, a lot of people who will show up haven't, because I hadn't last week. And then with the abortion bill, I was like, well, I'm definitely going to that. Yeah. So it was my first time doing anything like that. So
that's right. And you think about it. It's very confusing, can be intimidating, all those things. So we try to take the confusion out of it. We take the intimidation out of it. So all you have to do is focus on your thoughts and your opinions about this. So we're going to give you the artifact to talk to parents about it. Okay. We're going to give you the sex trafficking versus transgender trafficking, so you really understand the seriousness of this and where we are here, and what the transgender cult has pushed people to. And then we're going to give you a guide on what you can do about this. Okay, so again, they're listening to it this Friday. Doesn't mean you have to show up. You should show up, because there's going to be people there that I'm working with that's going to be showing up, and you want to give them support. Even if you don't speak, show up. Please show up to support them, even if you don't speak. Obviously, we would love that you speak, because you get on public record. You want to get on public record. If you're tired, if you're sick and tired of this being pushed onto your children, you have to take action. You can't just complain in a private Facebook group. That's not going to do anything. Okay? You can't just share a few articles and complain about how this country's going to hell if you don't actually take action to do something about it when you have the opportunity. And this Friday, you have the opportunity. So show up. If you can't show up, obviously a lot of people can't, physically show up for various reasons, then at least sign up for Zoom testimony. You can do it from home or at work. And then at the very least, you can do public comments. So, ideally you do a Zoom testimony and public comments. So you do 2, right? You put in your public comment, but literally there is zero excuse for anybody in Maine to not put in public comments.
Yeah, it's probably the easiest option at this point.
It's the easiest option, right? And I mean, you don't even have, the thing is, even if you live outside of Maine, you can do that, because this affects everybody.
Yeah.
If someone's following you on your show and they don't live in Maine, you should still put in public comments, because this impacts you. I've even heard them
say California, we're just 10 years behind them. So if we're hitting this point, the rest of the world's going to be soon, or the rest of America, I should say.
I used to say, because I was born and raised in California. I moved out of California in 2020. Wow. I used to tell people when I go and speak to parents that if you want to see 10 years into the future, all you have to do is fly 4 hours west.
Yikes. That's terrifying.
Today, I've changed that. I say, if you want to see 5 years into the future, fly 4 hours west.
Yeah.
Because we don't have, there's not 10 years. It's not 10 years. Let me just set this here for everybody. SB 107 was passed last October, November in California.
Wow.
This May.
That's not that far back.
Okay. Think about that. It's May. Okay. So you're talking about 7-8 months. So again, this bill is a copycat bill. It's popping up in different parts of the state. But if you don't live in if you don't live in Maine, you should still put in public comments, simply because it still impacts you. Because if you live somewhere and then your children crosses over to Maine, you lose them. Yep. So everyone should be putting in public comments at the very least to this thing. And it's so easy. We make it super easy for you. Just go down to number 3, ignore 1 and 2, because you're obviously not going to show up in Maine, and you're not probably going to do Zoom testimony. If you don't live in Maine, you could. Obviously you could, but I know people have lives and things. But there's no reason why you can't put in public comments, because everybody sees it. It's important that you make your voices heard, even if you're not in Maine. We made it super easy for you. So there's no, I mean, if you're going to spend time complaining on social media, you can spend the 10 minutes literally
just
to put in your comments.
Something up, right?
Yeah, because you're gonna type it on Facebook anyway.
Right. Might as well send it in.
Yeah.
Yep. Wow. Yep. That's all crazy. It's really insane to think about. I use the example of my toddler all the time, where he tells me, "Hey mom, I'm a semi-truck." And it's kind of a morbid example, but I'm not going to pluck his eyes out and replace them with headlights. And I'm not going to cut his hands and feet off and put wheels on him. So why are we letting children who can't decide bedtime, what's for dinner, they can't drive a car, Like, oh, okay, well, sure, you can mutilate yourself, you can castrate yourself.
Yeah.
You don't understand what it is to have children. You don't understand what it is to reproduce. And we're going to
Yeah.
let you take that away from yourself because you're 4 and apparently you
Yeah.
want it. It's
Yeah.
just
It's the
insane.
most, it's truly the most evil thing of our time
Mm,
is child sacrifice, is pure child sacrifice. That's really what it is. It's
mm-hmm.
evil. This is not a, oh, maybe they mean well and they have their heart in the right place. No,
Yep.
no, no, no. This is evil. Whether they really believe they're it or not, they're evil. When you're mutilating children, when you're robbing of their innocence, you're making them into lifelong medical patients.
Mm-hmm.
That's pure evil. That's what you're doing. There's nothing, children, there's no such thing as a transgender child.
No.
No such thing. Okay. There is no such thing as a transgender child. And everybody needs to be comfortable and confident to say that because that's true. All children are born perfect just the way they are. What the transgender cult recruiters, what they like to confuse people is they're mixing the social contagion that they're putting on children today and saying there's always been transgender people. No, there's not. There's been people with gender dysphoria.
Yep.
Okay. There's no such thing as a transgender child. People have gender dysphoria, classically speaking, historically speaking, 0.003% of girls had gender dysphoria.
Interesting.
0.003. Let me translate that to what that means. That's 1 in 30,000. Now,
Wow.
out of that 1 in 30,000, 85 to 90% of them actually grow out of it when they hit puberty.
Yep.
Okay.
But if
This
you
is
take that away
why
from them, they'll never hit it.
they'll never hit it. That's the point. That's why they're pushing kids so hard so that they never get out of this.
Mm.
Classically speaking, transsexuals, that's what they call themselves before
Yep.
this, before 5 minutes ago, they go through transition when they're already an adult. Not 18, not 19, but in their 20s when they've gone through all the therapy, when they've gone through all these things, and they are one of the tiny percentage that don't grow out of it. And that is such a small percentage, right? Because out of the 0.003%, most of them grow out of it. The ones that don't are what we call classically transsexuals.
Right.
I've talked to many, many transsexuals. I do so all the time in our Twitter spaces. I do so personally. They all tell me, every single one of them, I am appalled that they would do this on children. This is insane. I would never want this for anybody. So that's 1 in 30,000. Okay. In 2022, 1 in 167 girls identify as transgender.
Wow.
Think about that. 1 in 167. That's a social contagion.
And you know it's specifically targeting children because it's the TikTok influencers. It's
Yep.
all these algorithms meant for young children that it's going straight to, which is awful.
Instagram stories, YouTube shorts, YouTube kids, TV shows, cereal boxes, obviously the school counselors, social workers.
Yep.
So this is a social contagion that they've created on purpose so that they could, it's a, number one, it's a big business. The transgender industry now is a $2 billion industry, whereas just before only there was like one, back in like 2000, whatever, 2007 or something, 2008, there was like one transgender clinic. Now there's like hundreds. It's a $2 billion industry. It has last few years is about 11% growth. It is a big business, and it creates revolutionists. You're separating children from their families. You're separating children. This transgender bill, this LD1735 in Maine, it separates children from their parents, and that's the whole end goal, is to separate the children so that you create this army. And you're seeing it now, right? You see these transgender, they activate these lunatic transgender kids that they've completely just driven to insanity, and they send them out to state houses. Yeah. And that's what it is. You're creating soldiers, mutilated soldiers that don't know if they're a boy or girl, that think that the world's out to kill them. And that's exactly what they're doing. And you're seeing it. You're even seeing it now, right? You're seeing them march over the Tennessee to, wherever they sent them to. So, LD, 1735, every parent in Maine, whether you're in Maine, out of Maine, we're going to give you the tools to try to do something about it. And you have until, the Thursday evening. We want you to get that in Thursday evening, and then if you're going to show up before 1 p.m. on Friday. So let's let them hear about it.
Definitely, for sure. Yes. So Is that all a good wrap up for you, or would you like to go a little bit longer? I'm not sure how
Well,
much
I
time we
would
have left on
say,
my
I mean,
Zoom.
this is specifically for LD 1735. In
Yes.
general, if everybody come for other, there's a lot of obviously things going on in school. We focus mainly, on the K through 12, even though the LD 1735 obviously is not just educate. It doesn't just impact education; it impacts everybody.
Yeah.
But the majority of the time, we focus on education things. So like the bill
Right.
that you're fighting, which you're doing a fantastic job on. Thank
Thanks.
goodness you're doing it. We don't get into that, not because we don't, it's just that's not out of our lane, And so if everybody visits courageisahabit.org,
Okay.
courageisahabit.org, we have a very vast catalog of tools and strategies for parents,
Yes, I
legislators
liked
to
some
help
of
you
the stuff that
understand
I saw where you listed some like gender, is it genderqueer? And you listed some of the books and things to watch out
the
for. That was
books.
awesome.
Yeah. We teach you how to protect your children from school counselors. We
Nice.
expose the American School Counselor Association, which is a very radical organization. They got a chapter in all 50 states. They're
Wow.
huge in Maine, huge in Maine. And they drive the social contagion, the transgender social contagion. We give you opt-out forms. So if you go to courageisahabit.org and click on school counselors, each of those tools, we expose the school counselors using their own
Nice.
words and their own, because we go into their trainings, we go into their conferences, and we pull
Nice.
information. And then we show parents, this is what they're teaching. Don't take our word for it. Watch their own video, look at their
Right.
PowerPoints. And at the end of that, it's an opt-out form that our attorneys wrote for parents to use. So we got a
Okay.
lot of tools for parents from all different angles. And then we are a nonprofit, so every support that you give us, whether you share a tool, whether you print it out, the best thing, honestly, for us is if you take our tool, print it out, go to a school board,
Mm,
print it out, handing out to everybody.
nice.
That's honestly the thing that we really ask everyone to do: to print out our tools, share it, and then bring it to school board, bring it to your meeting with your principals, and really hold their feet to the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Because we give you the confidence, the information, the facts to be able to fight this. And obviously, if you want to support us financially, every dollar goes right back to our team, to our work. Each of those tools takes dozens, if not hundreds, of hours to
Awesome.
vet and to do right. And
Yeah.
sometimes we get a tool out and we're like, you know what, that part where that part there is we can make that better, or you know what, we didn't say that well, or we could use a better example. And
Yep.
so we're constantly tweaking these tools because we want everything to be correct, and to stand really strong, so that way parents have the confidence to use it. So every dollar you support us, it goes right back to our fight. If you go to courageisahabit.org, you can click on the
Awesome.
little heart, or we call it a courageous supporter, and give
Nice.
us either help us out monthly or one time, and all that really goes a long way for us. It really, really does.
Awesome. And then you're on Twitter as well. So do you have a
On
specific?
Twitter, we're at yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I almost forgot about that. So yeah, so any social media says at Courage Habit. So the
Okay.
website is courageisahabit.org. The organization is called Courage is a Habit, but our socials are all socials are at Courage Habit.
Okay. That's good to know. Sweet. So that'll be awesome. People can find you that way. So thank you very much
Absolutely.
for doing this. I think it's definitely
Thank you.
good to bring the awareness because I know a lot of people are local that listen to me.
Sure.
I think. Oh, good. It just gave me a notification. So we're doing great on time. um,
Good.
a lot of local people, a lot of people that might not necessarily know about this. I know with the abortion bill, there was a lot of people that were like, wait, what's happening in my state?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
keeping people informed is probably one of the top priorities on this situation.
It
So,
is. And people like you who are doing independent shows, who nobody can tell you what to say or what to do.
right.
And that's honestly more important than anything else, because obviously the legacy media is worthless.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that the legacy media is completely worthless, and it's independent podcasters, YouTubers, people like you, journalists, anyone that digs information and presents it in a truthful way.
Mm,
People like you make all the difference in the world, because obviously your followers trust you, and you're bringing things that they don't know about. And over
yeah.
time, they learn that you have credibility, far more than any legacy media, and that makes all the difference in the world. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Yes. Thank you
And your
for coming
setup
on
looks
here.
great.
Thanks.
You're great. Everything sounds great. Your setup looks great. So
Thank you.
you're doing it really good.
Definitely trying. So,
Yeah.
yep. Thank you for coming on and talking about all that. That was fantastic.
Thank you. I'll send you the
So,
links, and that way everybody, by the time they watch the show, you'll get all on your show notes.
all right. And I can be found at fearmeitsbre-The on Twitter and Instagram as well. YouTube, you're already here, so that's kind of irrelevant at this point. So thank you again for coming on, and I hope you have a great afternoon.